Hi everybody, welcome back. Thanks for watching again. Today I'm going to talk about whales. Can we estimate how many there are, and does it matter, and do we care? I don't know. Let's get into it. So, I recently sold my Todd and Superman. I had two of each of them, so I kept one. Let me talk through it. And it really comes down to how many whales I think there are. So in this video, I want to kind of talk about what a whale is, or what I think it is, right? And how many I think there are, why it matters, do we care? Some of you may completely disagree with what I have to say in this video, and that's okay. As I always say, I'm just some dude in a basement, so take everything with a grain of salt. But I do think it's interesting to think about, and hopefully that's entertaining, informative, whatever it is for you. Okay, so I had two Todds and two Supermen. Supermen? I don't even know. Supermans? I don't know what the correct term is. And I sold one of each, mainly to get the money to buy sets. And I've been watching prices, as you know, for about, month, 2 months now, and they really hadn't moved. In fact, I have said this before, Todd is one of the most stable NFTs in the marketplace. And in fact, maybe we should compute everything off of Todd, like it's the ground zero. I was wondering why the price hasn't changed, because, everybody you talk to, any video you see, they're always like, oh, if you can afford it, you should get a Todd. It's the first NFT, it's the first Batman, etc., etc. It's a great investment. But yet it had not moved. Now, that doesn't mean that not long term, it's not a good NFT. I think it's fabulous, and that's why I kept one. And it's fun from a collecting perspective too, not only an investment perspective. The reason why it hasn't sold more and the price has stabilized is that there's not enough people buying it, which makes perfect sense. And so when I tried to analyze a little bit more, and it's tough because we don't have exact numbers, but I was looking at the market and whatnot, it seems like maybe one or two sell a day. And when you have, for Todd, 7,500 available, it's just going to take a lot, many days to get to a point where it becomes more scarce and it drives up the price. And so that got me thinking about who's buying these things and what would it take to make the price go up. Because if I knew that the price was going to go up next month, of course I wouldn't have sold one. But I actually think it might take a while. And let me tell you why. Of course, we could have explosive growth. And I think that with some of the announcements recently with Disney, etc., I think there is, and I think we already are to a certain degree experiencing some explosive growth, but there's different types of growth, and I think it takes time. You have people that may even be have a lot of money and maybe even willing to spend a lot of money, but it's going to take some time, just like myself or other people, to warm up to the system, and they're probably not going to start out buying a Todd. They're going to buy a couple comics, and then they're going to like it, and then they might like this set, and then they're going to buy a Spider-Man, a common Spider-Man, and then they might buy an uncommon Spider-Man. You know how it's going to go. So I still think we're a couple months out from being able to sell those out. The number of listings that I was watching has basically stayed the same. So in other words, it's almost like someone sells theirs, and another person replaces it on the market. So the other extreme, of course, that you would want to look at would be Donnie. Okay, so Donnie, there's only 150. I think when I started looking at it, there was 5 listed. Now there's 3 listed. Now, it's such small numbers that it's really difficult to understand what's going on. You don't even know if it's sold. I remember they used to be listed for 70, and now they're listed for 100K. So did it sell? Did it not sell? It's difficult to know. I'm just going to assume it sold at 70K and that moved it to 100K, but once again, we don't know. But that's the other extreme, is that it is so scarce that, and people want that it's driving up the market there. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers. So let me define a couple things here. So I'll define it in 4 ways, and it's more from when I've played other video games and other things, how they talk about people who spend money. So there's the average person, and then there is a step up beyond that, which is most people kind of call a dolphin, which I would probably consider myself a dolphin. So they're spending, I'd say maybe they have invested as much as on the upper limit of 10K. I haven't done that much, but somewhere in there, they do have a Todd. They're not afraid to spend $1,700 on a NFT or $1,000 on a Superman. So that would be a dolphin. And then we have whales. So those are people who have excess of 10,000, and in other words, their vault is worth 10,000, but they're also, if there's something that they want for 5K, they'll, move around some money and grab it. And then you have what in other video games, mobile games I know are called Krakens. And those are people that are just at a whole nother level. They're willing to spend $100,000 plus. Anything they wanted, they could buy everything. They could buy probably everything, literally all of it. But they're only kind of, they have other investments and other things. But for them, this is just the amount of money is just so minimal. It's just all kind of fun for them. But yet they still buy stuff, and they are playing the game along with us all when it comes to the Master Collector program. So let's talk about those Krakens for a second. I think that, if they want a Donnie, they're going to buy a Donnie. And many of them might have. And that's how Donnie got to the price it's at. I would bet, and this is just me guessing, a lot of the people who own Donnies did not sell theirs. They got it on the initial drop. They were very lucky. They kept it, and it skyrocketed. Now, I don't know. I'll make it up. Maybe 20 or so people have sold theirs, maybe more. I have no idea. If someone knows, definitely comment below so we can learn. And each one of those has jumped, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, and that's how it's gotten to, $100,000. But I don't think all 150 have exchanged hands. That I wouldn't think so there. So, but those types of people, I do believe, for example, if they believe in the platform, they are enjoying it, would be a person, and you've seen some of these people, on Twitter or on Facebook, they have 50 sets. They have multiple of each sets. And they are looking at it, from an investment perspective and, enjoyment perspective, others. So when I look at that, you have to think about if they have some of these other ones, like, for example, if they have let's look at some that have a smaller amount of minted. So let's look at Professor Utonium. So that one is 450, there's only 21 listed, and the price is 2,300. 2,300 is a low enough price that if there was a Kraken or whale that wanted it, they might just buy it and be able to, obviously it's tough because you have to have Donnie to complete that set. And that's what's, I think, kind of keeping Professor Utonium down, is that if it could complete its own set without Donnie, that one actually would be worth more in my mind. Another one that has a relatively low minted are those comics. The SR comics have 600 or less. And so those, obviously the two big ones are Marvel Comics, which is worth 43,000 is the floor today I looked, and ASM number 1 is at 7,000. So I'd say once it reaches over $10,000, you're probably more into the Kraken range, and once things are under $10,000, you're still in the whale range. So let's talk about the two different types of whales. The first type of whale are some of the people that have been in Veve customers for a long time, some of the OGs, and they have been able to get a lot of the collectibles at list or maybe slightly over list. And so by flipping things, they have been able to really accumulate large vaults. And, once again, that's great. But I think that style of whale is much different. And although they may have a lot of gems at their disposal because they've been able to flip things, I think that's a different type of whale and mentality than a newer whale. Someone who, like myself, I've only been really collecting for about a month and a half, 2 months. And if I really wanted to get something, like, for example, I bought the SR Miles Morales, I have to put the money in. I can't flip enough to get that comic. So I had to go to my bank account, take the money, put it into Veve. And so whales that are putting in 10K, 20K, they're buying the SR Spider-Mans at 13,000. That's a different type of whale in my mind. Those are the type of whales that we want because A, they're injecting money into the system, but B, each one of those that comes into the system, hopefully they really, enjoy it and they enjoy the collecting, and they're like, hey, I want to collect a bunch of these sets. I want my own Todd. And they're going to eat up a Todd, and they're never going to put it back on the market. And that's really what we're waiting for, right? So I think we don't have enough of those, as I said before, and that's why Todd hasn't moved up enough. There's too many Todds. So what does that tell you? Todd, there are 7,500 of them. And so if we had 7,500 of these new whales, there'd be 0 listings, right? So that sets the brackets, right? We know we don't have more than 7,500. We have less. Now let's look at Donnie. Donnie's 150. It's at 100,000. So there is probably, it seems like, at least 100 of the old and new whales, because there's only 3 on the market right now for Donnie, and it's at $100,000, which is a huge amount of money. Maybe not for some people, but for most people. And so even when you look at some of the other ones, so let's look at Marvel Comics #1, SR. So there's 600 of those, only 18 listed. It's at $43,000. So that's a big number. So we know that, there seems like the amount of these whales is between 600 and maybe 1,000. So I did some other numbers here in looking at prices, because once, none of these NFTs come out and they're, $5,000 listed, of course. It takes time for them exchanging hands to build up, and obviously there has to have the value there to get it to the point they're at. But the thing that I said, so when you're looking at minted under 1,000, these are expensive. So no matter, even if I would think that, and this is nothing against some of those collectibles, but even if I wouldn't think they're not as popular, say as a Superman, a Batman, or a Spider-Man, their scarcity is what drives them to be really expensive. So I looked at ones underneath 1,000, and they're all, $1,500 plus. So that seems to be like, hey, this is where if you mint something under 1,000, it's eventually going to be worth more than $1,000. And of course, you find ones that are super, super expensive. So once you get into the range of the minted between like 1,500 and 2,500, the price starts to really come down, because there's not enough whales to eat them all up, and now they're really moving. So the minted between 1,500 and 2,500, the price of those NFTs seems to be between $500 and $1,000. And then for ones minted over 2,500, the price, now you're looking at, some of them are falling all the way to their list price when they're listed, or they're under $200. Of course, the exceptions are Batman and Todd. So it really shows you, if Batman and Todd had even half the minted, they would be to the moon. But that's what's interesting, is we know that there's more and more people coming onto the system. So at what pivotal point, and I'll try and track some of this and share it with you as I watch it, do some of these so right now, like I said, the number of minted, it seems to be around 1,000. Anything under 1,000 really jacks the price up beyond $1,500. But as more and more people come into the system, maybe that magic number changes from 1,000 minted to 1,500 minted. So this is what we kind of want to watch. And when I start seeing that, that's when I want to jump back and try and grab Superman and Todd. Because then the potential for that to go up is significant. And I want to have 2 of them, because eventually I'll probably want to sell one, but I'm not going to want to sell. I want to keep one forever, and I'll probably want to sell one. And I've learned that from comics. For comics I really, really like, I try to buy 2, because then I'm able to sell one later on, and I'm not going to want to sell one. I know that. If it's priced, if I can do it. Sometimes I can't buy 2 because they're just too expensive. Okay, so that's kind of my wrap up on the whales. I really feel like there are around 600 maybe. The magic number for a lot of these, of course, is if we could get 1,000 or 2,000 of these whales, because then things would really sell out and all the prices would really go up. Now, maybe that's bad, maybe that's good, I don't know. I'm just trying to describe what I think is going to happen. Hopefully some of these numbers are helpful. And I appreciate you guys for watching. I'll talk to y'all soon.